Commander Jake Sullivan stood at the big window of the space station Terra Prime. He watched the alien ships coming closer. These ships belonged to the Zelkari, a race that thought they were better than everyone else. For 50 years, humans had followed the rules made by the Galactic Council. They had been patient when aliens insulted them. They had been quiet when alien ships flew through human space without asking. They had said nothing when aliens took their resources and gave them almost nothing back. The Galactic Council treated humans like children. They acted like humans should be happy just to sit at the same table as the other alien races. But humans were getting tired of this treatment. They were tired of being pushed around. The last straw came 3 days ago. The Harkoni Empire had attacked 3 human colony worlds. These worlds had families, farms, and small cities. The Harkoni ships came without warning. They killed the defenders and took control of everything. Then, they said the worlds now belonged to them. They claimed humans were too weak to use the resources properly. When human leaders asked the Galactic Council for help, the Council did what they always did. They wrote a letter saying the attack was wrong. They asked humans to be patient and understanding. They said violence was not the answer. But the Council did nothing real to help. Admiral Lisa Grant was in her office on the battleship Washington when the message came from Earth. She had been reading reports about the captured worlds. Human civilians were being used as slaves. Families were separated. Children were taken from their parents. The aliens were treating humans like animals. The message from Earth High Command was short but clear. It said the Diplomacy Act had been voted out by everyone in the human government. All limits on human military actions were now gone. The message ended with words that made Grant smile for the first time in days. It said humans were now free to remind the galaxy why their species had conquered an entire planet before they could even travel to the stars. Captain Ryan Blake read the new orders on his ship, the destroyer New York. His hands shook a little as he understood what this meant. For 50 years, humans had been playing a game where they pretended to be weak. They had hidden their real strength because they wanted to be part of the galactic community. But now, the game was over. Blake remembered his training at the military academy. His teachers had told him about the secret protocols. They had explained that every human ship, every station, every outpost had hidden weapons. They had been built to look peaceful, but they could become war machines in minutes. Blake had thought those stories were just rumors. Now he knew they were real. On Terra Prime, Jake Sullivan received a coded message on his personal device. The message activated systems he had never used before. Suddenly, his computer screen showed weapons he did not know his station had. Mining lasers that could cut through ship armor. Cargo bays that were really missile storage areas. Communication arrays that could jam enemy signals across an entire star system. Sullivan called his senior staff to the command center. These people had worked with him for years, but now they looked different. They stood straighter. They moved with purpose. It was like they had been waiting for this day their whole lives. Lieutenant Commander Alex Martinez was on a ship called the Ghost Protocol. This ship was supposed to be a research vessel, but now Alex learned the truth. It was one of the most advanced warships ever built by humans. It had been disguised as a science ship for 20 years. The aliens had no idea what it really was. Alex looked at the new mission orders. His ship was to move to the border of human space and wait. When the signal came, they would attack any alien ship that tried to enter human territory without permission. The days of alien ships flying through human space like they owned it were over. Dr. Helen Carter worked at a research facility on Mars. She had spent years developing new technologies that the aliens thought were for peaceful purposes. Energy shields that could protect cities, faster engines for exploration ships, new materials for building better habitats on harsh worlds, but Helen had a secret lab deep underground. In this lab, she had been working on weapons that could change how wars were fought in space. Bombs that could destroy entire fleets, missiles that could travel faster than anything the aliens had. Devices that could disable enemy ships without destroying them, leaving the crews alive but helpless. When Helen got the message that the Diplomacy Act was gone, she felt excited and scared at the same time. She had always hoped these weapons would never be needed. But she had also known this day might come. She sent a message to her team leaders. It was time to move the secret weapons to the human fleet. General Patricia Stone sat in the command center deep under the Rocky Mountains. Around her, hundreds of screens showed the positions of every human ship and station in the galaxy. For 50 years, the aliens had seen only a small part of human military strength. They had seen exploration ships, cargo vessels, and a few light warships for defense. What they had not seen were the secret shipyards in distant star systems. They had not seen the hidden bases built inside asteroids. They had not seen the weapons factories disguised as civilian industries. All of this had been built quietly, carefully, while humans smiled and played the role of peaceful explorers. Stone pressed a button that sent a signal across the galaxy. Every human commander received the same message at the same time. The message had just 4 words, but they changed everything. It said, "The gloves are off." In space stations and ships throughout human territory, people began removing panels and opening hidden compartments. Weapons that had been concealed for decades were finally revealed. Peaceful mining ships became armed cruisers. Research stations became military fortresses. Even the small courier ships that carried messages between worlds turned out to have hidden torpedo launchers. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had pushed humans too far. They had forgotten that humans had fought wars for thousands of years before they ever left Earth. They had forgotten that humans had conquered their own planet not through diplomacy, but through strength and determination. Now humanity was ready to remind the galaxy what they really were. Admiral Thexkar of the Zelkari fleet felt good about himself as his big warship moved toward the human mining station at Kepler 442b. His ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built, or so he thought. The Zelkari had been bullying humans for years, and humans always gave up when they saw superior firepower. Thexkar expected the usual response from the humans. They would send some messages asking him to leave. They might complain to the Galactic Council. In the end, they would surrender and let him take whatever he wanted from their mining operation. But something was wrong. The human station was not calling for help. It was not asking him to stop. Instead, it was powering up systems that Thexkar did not recognize. Captain Emma Foster stood in the command center of Mining Station Delta. She had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. Her station looked like a simple mining operation from the outside, but it was really a military fortress. The mining lasers could cut through asteroid rock, but they could also slice enemy ships in half. The ore processing facility was actually a missile factory that had been building weapons for decades. Emma smiled as she gave the order to attack. The mining lasers turned toward the Zelkari fleet and fired. The beams were so powerful that the first alien ship exploded before its crew knew what was happening. The other Zelkari ships tried to return fire, but their shots bounced off shields that were much stronger than anything a mining station should have. The cargo ships near the station suddenly changed. Their cargo pods fell away, showing sleek warships underneath. These ships had been pretending to be slow transport vessels, but they were really fast. Attack craft with the best weapons humans had ever built. Lieutenant Commander Alex Martinez watched through his ship's sensors as the battle began. His vessel, the Ghost Protocol, had been hiding in the shadow of an asteroid for 3 days. The Zelkari had flown right past it without noticing. Now, Alex could see that human ships all over the sector were dropping their disguises at the same time. A cargo vessel near the gas giant revealed missile launchers along its hull. A research station studying the system's star opened up with energy weapons that made the air itself seem to burn. Even the small courier ship that delivered mail between human outposts turned out to have torpedo tubes hidden in its communication array. The Zelkari admiral tried to understand what was happening. His sensors showed that there were now 20 human warships, where his scouts had reported only 5 civilian vessels. But these readings had to be wrong. Humans did not have this kind of military power. They were explorers, and traitors, not warriors. Thexkar sent a message demanding that the humans stop fighting and surrender. The response came from Captain Foster herself. She said that humans were done surrendering. She said that any alien ship in human space without permission would be destroyed. She gave the Zelkari exactly 10 minutes to leave or be blown apart. Thexkar was angry. No human had ever spoken to him this way. He ordered his remaining ships to attack the station directly. But when his weapons hit the station's shields, nothing happened. The shields absorbed the energy and actually seemed to get stronger. Then Foster showed him something that made his blood run cold. The asteroid field around the station began to move. What Thexkar had thought were rocks were actually camouflaged warships. Dozens of them had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for exactly this moment. On Earth, General Patricia Stone activated the final phase of Operation Revelation. Across human space, every installation began showing its true nature. Peaceful colonies revealed hidden defense platforms. Civilian shipping lanes turned out to be protected by invisible escort ships. Even the diplomatic stations, where humans met with alien representatives, opened weapon ports that had been sealed for decades. Captain Sam Rodriguez was piloting a fighter that launched from what the aliens thought was a communication satellite. His ship was so small and fast that alien sensors could barely track it, but it carried weapons that could disable much larger vessels. Sam's squadron had been practicing for this day in secret training areas beyond the outer planets. The Zelkari were not the only aliens getting a surprise. Harkoni ships that had been patrolling near human space suddenly found themselves surrounded by human vessels that seemed to appear out of nowhere. These ships had been hiding using technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. Dr. Helen Carter's secret weapons were finally being used. Her gravity bombs pulled enemy ships out of formation and crushed them like tin cans. Her quantum torpedoes passed right through alien shields as if they were not there. Her newest creation, something she called a neural disruptor, shut down enemy ship computers and left the crews floating helplessly in space. The aliens had always wondered why humans were so good at building mining equipment and industrial machinery. Now, they learned the truth. Every human tool could be turned into a weapon. Every human factory could produce military equipment. Every human worker knew how to fight if necessary. Captain Blake's destroyer, the New York, was part of a battle group that attacked a Harkoni supply convoy. The alien ships expected to fight a few human patrol vessels. Instead, they faced a coordinated assault from ships that moved and fought like nothing they had ever seen. Human tactics were different from anything in alien military books. Human pilots would ram their ships into enemy vessels if it meant winning the fight. Human captains would sacrifice their own ships to save civilian lives. Human soldiers would fight until their last breath, never giving up, no matter how hopeless things looked. The aliens realized they had made a terrible error. They had thought human diplomacy was a sign of weakness. They had believed human patience meant humans were afraid to fight. They had assumed that because humans talked about peace, humans did not know how to make war. But humans had been making war for thousands of years before they ever met an alien. They had conquered their own world through conflict and struggle. They had learned to fight in environments that would kill most alien species. They had developed weapons and tactics that were beyond alien understanding. The revelation spread across the galaxy in hours. Every alien government received reports that human ships were not what they seemed. Human stations were really military bases. Human colonies were protected by hidden defenses that could destroy entire fleets. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from dozens of alien species demanded to know how humans had hidden so much military power. They wanted to know why humans had lied about their capabilities. They wanted to know what humans planned to do next. But the humans were no longer interested in council meetings. They were no longer willing to sit quietly while aliens made decisions about human lives. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human strength had begun. Admiral Grant received reports from across human space. Every alien force that had threatened human interests was being pushed back. The Harkoni ships that had captured human colonies were under attack. The Zelkari fleets that had been raiding human shipping were being hunted down. Even the Council's own patrol ships were being warned to stay away from human territory. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humans were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply chosen to be peaceful. But when peace failed, humans knew how to wage war better than any species in the galaxy. And now that the Diplomacy Act was gone, the galaxy would see what humans were truly capable of. Admiral Grant's flagship, the Titan, dropped out of hyperspace with a sight that froze alien hearts across the sector. Behind her came 200 warships that no alien had ever seen before. These were not the small exploration vessels or modest cargo ships that humans had shown the galaxy for decades. These were pure instruments of war, built in secret shipyards hidden in the dark spaces between stars. The Titan itself was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever admitted to building. Its hull was black as space, covered with weapons that alien military experts could not identify. Energy readings from the ship made no sense according to known human technology. It was like humans had been lying about everything for 50 years. Captain Sam Rodriguez launched his experimental fighter from the Titan's hangar bay. It moved in ways that should have been impossible, making turns that would crush normal pilots. But Sam had been trained since childhood for this moment. He and his squadron were the best pilots humanity had ever produced. The alien ships trying to defend the sector had never faced anything like human fighter tactics. Sam's fighters would dive straight at enemy vessels, firing everything they had, then pull away at the last second. Sometimes they would not pull away at all. Human pilots would ram their fighters into enemy ships if it meant protecting human lives or completing their mission. Dr. Helen Carter watched from the Mars Command Center as her weapons were finally used in real combat. The gravity bombs she had designed in secret were devastating. When they exploded near enemy ships, they created gravitational fields that crushed metal like paper. Alien vessels that had seemed mighty moments before became twisted wreckage floating in space. Her quantum torpedoes were even more frightening to the enemy. These weapons passed through shields and armor as if they were not there. They struck at the heart of enemy ships, destroying power systems and leaving crews helpless in the dark. No alien technology could stop them or even slow them down. But the weapon that scared aliens most was what Helen called the Planet Cracker. It had been built to destroy asteroids that threatened human colonies, but everyone knew what else it could do. A single shot from this weapon could split a moon in half. The aliens began to wonder what humans might do to their homeworlds if pushed too far. The Harkoni fleet that had taken human colonies found themselves facing Colonel Ben Wright and what he called a rescue operation. But it was not really a rescue. It was systematic destruction of every Harkoni ship in 3 star systems. Ben's forces did not just free the human colonies. They liberated every world the Harkoni had conquered, freeing dozens of alien species that had been enslaved. Ben's ground forces were like nothing the galaxy had seen. Human soldiers fought in environments that would kill most aliens. They used weapons that fired faster and hit harder than anything in alien arsenals. They moved through battlefields like they were born for war, which in many ways they were. The aliens learned that human soldiers would never surrender. Even when surrounded and outnumbered, they would keep fighting. They would use broken equipment as weapons. They would fight with their bare hands if necessary. Some Harkoni commanders began ordering their troops to retreat rather than face humans in ground combat. Captain Troy Davis commanded the human fleet that surrounded the Zelkari homeworld. His ships hung in orbit like dark angels of death, silent but clearly ready to destroy everything below. The Zelkari government that had spent years mocking human weakness now sent desperate messages begging for mercy. Troy's orders were clear. Any Zelkari ship that tried to leave the planet would be destroyed. Any military installation that powered up weapons would be eliminated. The Zelkari were trapped on their own world, prisoners of the species they had tormented. The sight of human warships blockading an alien homeworld sent shockwaves through the galaxy. No species had ever been this bold. No one had ever challenged the established powers so directly. The humans were not just fighting back, they were taking control. Admiral Rebecca Stone commanded the supercarrier Freedom, a ship so large it had its own artificial gravity and could support 50,000 crew members. Her mission was humanitarian, but the way she carried it out terrified alien governments. Wherever humans found oppression, slavery, or genocide, they intervened with overwhelming force. Rebecca's forces did not ask permission from local governments. They did not wait for Galactic Council approval. They simply arrived, destroyed any military forces that tried to stop them, and freed whoever needed freeing. Then they left behind human garrison forces to make sure the oppression did not return. The Galactic Council's own military tried to respond to the human uprising. The Council Peace Force had been designed to handle small conflicts between civilized species. Their ships were built for patrolling trade routes and stopping pirates. They were not prepared for full warfare against an enemy that seemed to have been planning for this day for decades. Human tactics confused alien military computers. Humans would attack from directions that made no tactical sense. They would sacrifice valuable ships to achieve goals that seemed pointless. They would fight battles they could not win just to buy time for other operations. It was like they were following completely different rules of war. Lieutenant Commander Alex Martinez's stealth ship, the Ghost Protocol, had been gathering intelligence on alien military capabilities for years. Now Alex learned that human intelligence services had been doing this throughout the galaxy. There were human agents in alien governments. There were human observers in alien military academies. There were even humans living on alien worlds, pretending to be refugees or traders while really gathering information. The depth of human preparation shocked even their enemies. Every alien military base had been mapped. Every alien ship design had been studied. Every alien weakness had been catalogued and prepared for. The humans had been ready for this war before most aliens knew a war was coming. Captain Emma Foster's mining station had become the command center for human operations in her sector. What had looked like a simple industrial facility was now revealed as one of the most heavily fortified positions in the galaxy. Alien fleets that tried to approach it were destroyed by weapons they could not even see. Emma coordinated attacks on alien supply lines throughout the region. Human ships would appear from nowhere, destroy alien cargo vessels, and disappear again. Alien military forces found themselves running out of fuel, ammunition, and food, while human forces seemed to have unlimited supplies. The psychological effect on alien species was enormous. For 50 years, they had believed humans were weak and dependent on alien protection. Now, they discovered that humans had been protecting themselves all along. Worse, humans had been capable of destroying any alien threat, but had chosen not to do so. This realization changed how aliens thought about every interaction they had ever had with humans. Every diplomatic meeting where humans had seemed to give in to alien demands now looked different. Humans had not been weak. They had been choosing their battles, waiting for the right moment to strike back. As reports poured in from across the galaxy, alien leaders began to understand the scope of human capabilities. Human ships were faster than alien vessels. Human weapons were more powerful than alien technology. Human soldiers were more determined than alien warriors. And humans had more of everything than anyone had imagined. The galaxy had shifted completely. The species that everyone had thought were junior members of the galactic community were actually the most powerful military force anyone had ever seen, and they were no longer interested in playing by rules made by others. Ambassador Kate Johnson walked into the emergency session of the Galactic Council with a confidence that made several alien delegates shift nervously in their seats. These were the same chambers where humans had been lectured and dismissed for 50 years. The same place where alien representatives had told humans to be grateful for whatever scraps they were given. Now everything was different. The alien delegates who had once looked down on humans were afraid to make eye contact. Their military forces were being destroyed across the galaxy. Their homeworlds were under threat, and they were desperate to understand how they had gotten everything so wrong. Kate took her place at the podium that humans had rarely been allowed to use. For decades, human representatives had sat in the back, speaking only when spoken to. They had been treated like children who should listen, while adults made important decisions. "You have questions," Kate said, her voice calm but carrying a threat that every alien in the room could feel. "You want to know how we hid our true capabilities. You want to know why we pretended to be weak when we were actually stronger than all of you combined." The Zelkari representative, Ambassador Vexloth, stood up with shaking hands. His species had been attacking human shipping for years, thinking humans were too weak to fight back. Now, Zelkari ships were running from human forces across 3 sectors. "You violated every treaty," Vexloth said, his voice high with fear. "You lied about your military strength. You broke faith with the galactic community." Kate smiled. And that smile made the temperature in the room seem to drop. "We violated treaties we never signed. We lied about nothing. We simply did not tell you everything. And as for breaking faith, we learned about broken faith from you." She activated a holographic display that showed human colonies under attack. Families being separated, children being sold as slaves, workers being forced to mine resources for alien masters while their own children starved. Every insult, every violation of our territory, every human enslaved or killed. "We remembered it all," Kate continued. "We kept detailed records. We documented every crime committed against our species. We simply decided to give peace a chance first." Captain Troy Davis received new orders while his fleet maintained the blockade of the Zelkari homeworld. The massive human dreadnoughts hung in orbit like silent judges, their weapons trained on population centers below. The Zelkari government had been sending desperate messages for hours, offering anything humans wanted if they would just leave. Troy's new orders were simple. Any Zelkari military vessel that tried to launch would be destroyed. Any weapon system that activated on the planet would be eliminated from orbit. The Zelkari were completely at human mercy, and mercy was something they had never shown to others. On the bridge of the supercarrier Freedom, Admiral Rebecca Stone coordinated humanitarian operations across a dozen star systems. But these were not normal humanitarian missions. Wherever humans found oppression, slavery, or genocide, they intervened with overwhelming force. Rebecca's forces had liberated 6 slave worlds in the past week. They had destroyed the military forces of 4 different alien empires. They had freed species that had been enslaved for generations, some of whom had forgotten what freedom even meant. The liberated species were not ungrateful. When human ships arrived to break their chains, they saw humans as saviors rather than invaders. Some alien species actually volunteered to join human forces, wanting to help free others who were still enslaved. Dr. Helen Carter watched the deployment of her weapons from her command center on Mars. The planet crackers had not been used yet, but their existence was known throughout the galaxy. Alien leaders were looking at their own worlds and wondering what would happen if humans decided they were a threat. The psychological warfare was as effective as the actual fighting. Alien governments that had never worried about human opinions were now desperate to avoid human anger. They were offering trade concessions, territorial agreements, and even tribute payments to stay in human good graces. The Harkoni Empire, which had started this war by attacking human colonies, was crumbling. Colonel Ben Wright's forces had not just freed human territory, they had systematically destroyed every Harkoni military installation in 100 systems. The Harkoni homeworld was under siege, its government hiding in underground bunkers. But humans were not interested in destroying civilian populations. When Harkoni worlds surrendered and agreed to free all slaves, human forces would withdraw. When they refused, human ships would eliminate their military capabilities and leave them defenseless against the species they had previously oppressed. The irony was not lost on anyone. The Harkoni, who had built their empire on enslaving others, were now at the mercy of the species they had enslaved. Many Harkoni worlds chose to surrender to humans, rather than face the revenge of their former victims. Captain Ryan Blake's destroyer, the New York, was part of a task force hunting down Galactic Council patrol ships. The Council had tried to enforce their authority over human space, sending their peacekeeping fleet to stop human military actions. The Council fleet had lasted exactly 6 hours against human forces. Their ships were designed for police work, not warfare. They were built to intimidate civilian vessels and break up small conflicts. Against human warships, designed for total war, they were helpless. Blake's orders were to capture Council ships intact when possible. Humans wanted the galaxy to see Council crews surrendering to the species they had dismissed as weak. The psychological effect was devastating to alien morale across the galaxy. General Patricia Stone coordinated the overall war effort from her command center deep underground. Reports flowed in from every sector of human space and beyond. Human forces were not just defending their territory. They were actively reshaping the political map of the galaxy. Stone's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Rather than trying to conquer alien worlds, humans were liberating them. Every species that had been oppressed by the major powers was now free. And most were grateful to humans for their freedom. This created a cascade effect. As more species were liberated, they provided intelligence about other oppressed peoples. They offered bases for human operations. Some even provided ships and crews to help with further liberation missions. Lieutenant Commander Alex Martinez's stealth ship had been gathering intelligence on the Galactic Council's secret facilities. What Alex discovered shocked even human command. The Council had been running slave labor camps on remote worlds. They had been conducting medical experiments on captured prisoners. They had even been planning to use biological weapons against species that challenged their authority. The evidence Alex gathered gave humans moral justification for everything they were doing. The Council was not a peacekeeping organization. It was a criminal conspiracy designed to keep powerful alien species in control while oppressing everyone else. Captain Emma Foster's mining station had become a symbol of human resistance. What had looked like an innocent industrial facility was now recognized as one of the most important strategic positions in the galaxy. Alien forces had tried to retake it 6 times, losing hundreds of ships in the process. Emma's success showed the galaxy that humans had been preparing for this war longer than anyone had imagined. Every human installation, no matter how peaceful it appeared, was a potential military stronghold. Every human ship, no matter how civilian it seemed, was a potential warship. Ambassador Kate Johnson concluded her speech to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered throughout history. "You assumed we were weak because we chose diplomacy. You mistook restraint for inability. You forgot that our species conquered an entire planet through strength and determination, not through begging for permission." She looked around the chamber at the frightened alien faces. "We did not want to be your rulers. We wanted to be your equals. Since you could not accept that, we will settle for being your protectors. The galaxy will have peace, but it will be peace on human terms." The council chamber was silent except for the sound of alien representatives breathing heavily. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And it had happened because the aliens themselves had forced humanity to abandon diplomacy and embrace war. 6 months after humanity dropped the Diplomacy Act, the galaxy looked completely different. The Galactic Council building stood empty, its chambers silent after centuries of alien rule. In its place, a new organization had emerged. The Terran Cooperative, with headquarters on a massive space station built in the Alpha Centauri system. President Frank Miller stood before the first assembly of the new galactic government. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber. But unlike the old council, every species had an equal voice. The difference was that humanity controlled the military force that made sure everyone kept their promises. "We did not want to be your rulers," Frank said to the gathered delegates. "We wanted to be your equals. Since you could not accept that, we had to become your protectors instead. The galaxy will have peace, But it will be peace built on justice, not on the oppression of the weak by the strong. Captain Julia Brown commanded one of dozens of human fleets now patrolling former Council space. Her ships moved through star systems that had once been controlled by alien empires, ensuring that the strong could never again prey upon the weak. The irony was clear to everyone. Humanity had become the galaxy's police force by proving they were the most dangerous species in known space. Julia's fleet included ships from many species. The aliens who had once fought against humans now requested to serve under human command. They had seen what happened to those who opposed humanity, and they preferred to be on the winning side. More importantly, they had seen that humans actually protected their allies instead of exploiting them. Commander Nick Parker oversaw the integration of former enemy fleets into the new cooperative navy. Many alien officers, freed from oppressive governments, actually wanted to learn human military techniques. They studied human tactics, trained with human weapons, and adopted human codes of military honor. The transformation was remarkable. Alien species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together under human leadership. The Zelkari, who had once been humanity's tormentors, had become some of their most loyal allies after learning the hard way that humans made better friends than enemies. Dr. Helen Carter had been promoted to head of cooperative defense research. Her weapons development programs now included scientists from dozens of species, all working together to create defenses against any future threats to galactic peace. The planet crackers remained in storage, a reminder of what would happen to anyone who threatened the new order. Helen's new projects focused on protection rather than destruction. Planetary shields that could stop asteroid impacts. Medical technologies that could cure diseases affecting multiple species. Terraforming tools that could turn dead worlds into homes for refugees from oppressed systems. Colonel Ben Wright had been given command of the Cooperative Liberation Corps, a military unit dedicated to freeing any remaining enslaved populations. His forces included volunteers from every species that had been liberated by human intervention. They wore human-designed uniforms and carried human weapons, but they fought for the freedom of all species. Ben's missions took him to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, hunting down the last remnants of the slave trade. Pirates and criminals who had once operated freely under the protection of corrupt alien governments now lived in fear of human justice. The galaxy was becoming a safer place for everyone. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the military one. Under the old Galactic Council, powerful alien corporations had controlled most trade routes and resource extraction. They had kept prices high and quality low, knowing that smaller species had no choice but to accept their terms. Human companies changed everything. They offered fair prices for raw materials. They provided advanced technology at reasonable costs. They hired workers from all species and paid them equally. Alien corporations that had grown rich through exploitation found themselves unable to compete with human business practices. Captain Sam Rodriguez had been promoted to lead the Cooperative Fighter Command. His pilots came from dozens of species, but they all trained using human methods. The diversity actually made them stronger, as different species brought different perspectives to combat tactics. Sam's squadrons patrolled the major trade routes, ensuring that merchant ships could travel safely. Pirates who had once raided with impunity found themselves facing fighters that moved like nothing they had ever encountered. Most criminals simply gave up and found honest work rather than face human-trained pilots. Admiral Grant had been named Supreme Commander of all cooperative forces. From her headquarters above Earth, she coordinated military operations across the entire galaxy. The scope of human influence was staggering, but so was the responsibility that came with it. Grant's daily briefings included reports from thousands of worlds. Former war zones were becoming peaceful. Enslaved species were gaining their freedom. Criminal organizations were being dismantled. The galaxy was finally becoming the peaceful community that the old council had always claimed to want. The Harkoni Empire had been completely transformed. Instead of one oppressive government ruling multiple species, each world now governed itself under cooperative protection. Former slave worlds had elected their own leaders. Former Harkoni military officers who had committed crimes were being tried by courts that included judges from the species they had oppressed. Some Harkoni worlds had actually prospered under the new system. Without the burden of maintaining a military empire, they could focus on trade, education, and cultural development. Many Harkoni citizens admitted privately that life was better under human protection than it had ever been under their own empire. The Zelkari transformation was even more dramatic. Their entire culture had been built around the idea of racial superiority and military conquest. Under human guidance, they were learning to value cooperation and peaceful achievement. Zelkari scientists were working with human researchers. Zelkari artists were creating works that celebrated diversity rather than supremacy. Captain Troy Davis now commanded the Zelkari Defense Force, a joint human-Zelkari fleet responsible for protecting Zelkari space from external threats. The former enemies had become so integrated that many ships had mixed crews, with humans and Zelkari working side by side. The old Galactic Council species found their new roles difficult to accept. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and suddenly, they were just another voice in a democratic assembly. Some adapted well, embracing the new system and finding ways to contribute positively. Others remained bitter, plotting in secret to restore their former dominance. Human intelligence services, led by experienced officers like Alex Martinez, kept watch on potential threats to the new order. The humans had learned their lesson about trusting alien promises. They maintained extensive surveillance networks and rapid response forces to deal with any attempts to return to the old ways. Ambassador Kate Johnson had become the first Secretary General of the Terran Cooperative. Her job was to balance the needs of hundreds of different species while maintaining the peace that human military strength made possible. It was a delicate task, but Kate had the advantage of knowing that every species in the assembly understood the consequences of returning to the old system of oppression. The transformation was not without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to democracy after centuries of authoritarian rule. Others had to learn how to resolve disputes through negotiation rather than violence. But the alternative was clear: work together peacefully, or face human intervention. As Admiral Grant looked out at the peaceful galaxy from her office above Earth, she reflected on the strange path that had brought them to this point. Humanity had achieved galactic peace through the threat of overwhelming violence. They had united the galaxy by proving they could destroy any part of it that threatened the whole. The galaxy had indeed shifted, exactly as humans wanted it. Species that had been enemies for millennia were now working together. Slavery had been abolished throughout known space. Pirates and criminals lived in fear of justice. And at the center of it all, the species that had once been dismissed as weak primitives now stood as the guardians of galactic civilization. The greatest irony was that humans had finally achieved what the old Galactic Council had always claimed to represent: a truly peaceful and just galactic community. They had accomplished this not through diplomacy and compromise, but through strength and determination. The galaxy was finally at peace, but it was a peace built on the understanding that humans would destroy anyone who threatened it.